Hello and welcome to the latest instalment of Professional Advisors Millennial Money series, where we discuss the issues that matter most to millennials and those looking to advise them. I'm Hannah Godfrey, and this week we're talking all things millennials and robo-advice. I have with me two robo representatives, Eve Esther, Head of Advisory Services, Hayley Millhouse, and Nutmeg, Head of Product, Casey Lord. Thank you both for being here with me. So I thought it would be good to start with just trying to understand who your typical customer is. So, how old are they, where do they live, what do they want from your services?
So this is actually quite an interesting question for Nutmeg, because I think a lot of people assume, given our brand, that we might target millennials, and that's really not the case. We have customers who are as young as in their early 20s and are as old as about 103, I think is our oldest customer. Most of our customers have a little bit of investing experience. Currently 45% have never invested before. And we have quite a few female investors as well. So about 35% of our customer base is female, compared to the industry average, which I think currently is about 26%. So we end up having a very, very broad range of different types of customer. One thing that they do all have in common is that they want something that is very accessible and based digitally. So the idea is that with Nutmeg, you can sign up anytime you like on our website. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And then once you've signed up, you can check your balance anytime by the website or by the mobile app. So that's the sort of thing that all of our customers are very, very interested in.
Yeah, similarly, it's quite interesting that you said about the demographic, because I do think particularly with our types of propositions, people expect them to appeal to certain demographics, and that isn't the case. We have found exactly the same in that, we have some of our youngest investors at 18 who are looking to, what's investing about, how can I get some help? All the way up to not quite as old as 103, but near there. And a lot of people, our customer base actually, 65 and over, so have existing investments, and actually now trying and looking, right, okay, well, what is it that I've got? Am I getting value for money, and what alternatives are out there?
I did not expect you guys to both have older client bases. I really thought you were going to say to me, yep, mostly young people. So, if you do have people that are approaching retirement, how do you deal with clients that have more complex needs rather than, young people that want to kind of get some money going, people that maybe are in the decumulation phase of their life?
So we do only have an accumulation proposition at the moment, but what we do find is that people aren't ready to draw on, to go into the decumulation phase straight away. If that was the case, we would make sure that we let the customers know where they can go in order to get some additional help on that basis. What we pride ourselves on is integrity, so quite a lot of people that actually go through our advice engine aren't suitable to get investment advice, and we let them know and we tell them that investing isn't quite right for you at this time, and we're working on our proposition to give them other avenues that will help them with their financial circumstances and help to build a more sustainable financial future. What we do have, though, is when people go through our advice engine, if they've accessed their pensions or anything like that, then we do prompt them to speak to one of our advisors, and we will discuss exactly what it is that they've accessed, how they accessed it, and is that something that they're still looking to do, or are they still looking to, because a lot of the time, even though somebody's in a decumulation phase, they're still looking for an accumulation vehicle as well to go hand in hand with that.
And to answer your questions about the customers who have the more complex needs, Nutmeg provides restricted financial advice. So we would give them advice to help them make a decision about whether investing is right for them. But if it isn't, and if it's something if their needs are outside of the scope of what Nutmeg can offer, then we would be very clear with them. And we can do that via just an initial chat on the phone, which would be free for customers. And we can try and signpost them to the sorts of advice that they might be able to go and get to solve their problems.
I was actually going to say, so who would you signpost them to if they're not right for you?
It completely depends on what their needs are. But for example, one that I was talking with colleagues about earlier was a customer who was looking to invest for their family, but they didn't have life insurance. So that's the sort of thing where we would point them in the direction of getting that. It's very unlikely that we would recommend a particular provider. We would just go and tell them the sorts of things that we think they should consider.
Yeah, we often as well recommend that a customer go and visit Unbiased. That's one of the sites that people can go and look for professionals in different areas of financial services. And again, we do offer restricted advice, and it's understanding what's the right thing for your customer and understanding what you can offer to your customer base.
So do you feel you are in competition with financial advisors?
I don't. I think what we are doing is offering an alternative. I think that's really important. So where potentially traditional advice is not appropriate for a customer, and that's if they've got more simplified financial needs or if they're looking to invest little or on a regular basis. So I think there is room for us all in the industry. As long as you know that you're adding value to your clients, then there should be room for everybody.
Nutmeg's mission is to democratise wealth management, and when we looked at financial advice, we saw a gap in the market to serve customers who either can't access financial advice or they can't afford financial advice, and that's really the segment that Nutmeg is most interested in. And the financial advice and guidance that we offer is a hybrid between digital and human-based.
Okay, so I appreciate that all of your customers aren't millennials, but as a millennial, I can certainly see why robo-advice would appeal to me, robo-advice. Because, I probably don't have enough money to bother a sort of in-person financial advisor. Do you think advisors have taken their eyes off the ball slightly when it comes to the younger generation? And who's to say that we won't just start using propositions like yours and just never kind of get to the advisor?
I'm a little bit wary of sort of bucketing millennials into one group and saying that advisors have taken their eye off the ball of that whole group. Do millennials have different needs to other segments? Maybe. One thing that I would comment on though is that any financial advisor who is not looking at providing digital solutions and very kind of easy to access and affordable financial advice probably is taking their eye off the ball.
How do you go about developing your technology so it keeps your audience captivated and in tune with their behaviour? I've heard interesting things about you kind of tracking what they're doing on the site so that you can, I suppose, make their lives easier in terms of you're understanding where they're going from A to B.
Absolutely, I think that's one of the key things: customer feedback, consumer testing. The real great thing about technology is that you are able to look where people are getting in the process. You can then try and understand, right, okay, well, why are they falling at a different stage, and then enhance your proposition based on the information that you've got.
So I would split my answer into two parts. The first would be when we are developing a technology product from scratch, a new product. And then the second part would be once we have a product that's already been launched and how we can optimize that based on data. So with the first one, we try to get data from our existing website to build an understanding of how customers interact with our current product and what their needs might be. We also do a huge amount of consumer testing. So we are always speaking to our customers, whether that be one-on-one, we go to their homes, we meet them in coffee shops, we invite them into our office and we speak with them in groups. And we also do quantitative testing where we would speak to hundreds of customers at a time to make sure that we understand exactly that what we're learning is representative of the entire population we want to serve. And all of that information is used to make sure we are building products that are relevant for the problems that customers have right now. The second thing we do is once a product is live, we then seek to optimize it by looking at data from customers. So you mentioned that we kind of look at what customers do on the website and might use that information. One example would be we have learnt over time that the more customers log in, the more likely it is that their financial circumstances have changed. And that could be, for example, that they have met their savings goal and they want to draw down their funds, or it could be that they need to invest more or change their risk level. So that's something that we can do. You know, we can engage with engage in a conversation at that point.
Yeah, what happens? Do you send them an email, or do you contact them via text, or what do you do?
It's actually more likely that we would show something on the website. So you can have like a sort of pop-up that has a message to the customer along the lines of, you know, are you interested in this content, or are you thinking of withdrawing, or something along those lines. And then going forwards, there's an increasing role of artificial intelligence in these sorts of examples as well, so that you can predict better what a customer wants to do next.
We touched on transparency earlier, actually, and being that, you know, we're on Millennial Money, I feel like transparency is something that matters to everyone, but there's something about the younger generation that feels more kind of suspicious of finance, whether that's because we grew up having, you know, witnessed 2008, I don't know, but it feels like people are very sort of wary about what they're being charged. And I've looked on both of your websites, and you've got fantastic things that show me if I invest X amount a month, I'm paying this in pounds and pence, which is very, very different to your traditional financial advisor. Fees can be quite difficult to work out, and sometimes they're not on the website at all. If they want to attract the younger generation, do you think they need to be more transparent?
Yeah, I think that they have a duty, you know, anybody that is taking out a financial service or a product, that they should be able to know how much they're paying, what value, you know, they're going to get for that. And value is very personal to each individual, and, you know, but only once you understand, you know, what it is that is being offered to you and what the cost is, can you understand actually what the value add is going to have. I think if anybody, as I alluded to earlier, is, you know, really confident with their proposition, then there's no need really to hide behind really complex charging structures.
I completely agree. And I think not just for millennials, but actually the entire customer base that Nutmeg has, transparency is absolutely crucial. Not just of fees, but of the actual proposition as well. And that's why when you sign up for a Nutmeg account, the first thing that you do is you create a sort of like a draft pot, and then Nutmeg will show you an illustration of what that pot might be worth in the future. And customers can see what they're potentially going to invest in before they even give us their personal details and create an account. And the other thing is simplicity. So transparency and simplicity, absolutely crucial.
So where do you see Robo? Do you like to be called Robo Advisors, just by the way, or is it?
No.
Should I, yeah, because I don't want to use the wrong phrase.
It's quite difficult, and one of the reasons why we're trying to differentiate our brands is the fact that I think robo-advice can cause confusion, and one of the things that I really want to try and push it, particularly around an educational piece, is, okay, well, what is guidance and what is advice? Because they can be quite confusing about what those two elements are. So yeah, it's an interesting concept, but I think one that we just need to be clear on what it actually means for a consumer.
But don't both of you offer advised propositions?
We do, but that's the difficulty with, you know, some of the other propositions out there actually don't give advice, but are labelled under robo-advisor. So predominantly what we offer is actually financial advice at no extra cost, so we don't charge for our financial advice.
I think what's usually implied by the term robo-advice is that a company is using robots or algorithms to design an investment portfolio or to manage and rebalance that portfolio over time. Nutmeg, therefore, doesn't like the term robo-advice applied to itself, because we actually have a team of people who construct and manage our investment portfolios over time. So you'll notice, if you have a look on our website, that we prefer to use the term digital wealth manager rather than robo-advisor.
Okay, fair enough. So where do you see the digital wealth management element of financial advice going in the next sort of 10 to 15 years? And, you know, I mean that in terms of, can you see lots more people jumping on board? Where do you think the technology is going to go? Because obviously technology is just getting really good really quickly. So what do you think?
I think the key thing is it's not just going to be about wealth management, and that's one of the key focuses of what Open Money will be. Actually, it's about all different aspects of financial advice, so that is whether it's paying down debt, saving for a rainy day, or actually if you are at the position in order then to go and invest. So for me, it's using that technology in order to be more holistic in your approach with regards to what you can offer consumers out there.
From a product point of view, I expect to see better use of data. I think at the moment there's a lot of companies that are collecting data. They're not necessarily making the best use of that data. And what I'd like to see the results of that would be better and more relevant products for customers, both from an investment portfolio point of view, but also crucially the advice and the guidance. And from a consumer point of view, what I would love to see in the next 10 years, or maybe even shorter, is sort of similar to how these neobanks and the challenger banks have led to an engagement in people interacting and engaging with their day-to-day finances. I'd like to see the same happen for what I think of kind of the finance of tomorrow or your future. So at the moment, looking at my peer group, I can see that people are very engaged with their day-to-day sort of income and expenditure and maybe budgeting if that's relevant for them, but they are not yet thinking about the longer term planning or pensions or retirement. We all hope to get there, but people are not thinking about it at the moment. And I hope that with better use of technology, it will be more accessible for everybody and people will start to think about those scenarios a bit more.
What about the traditional advice model over that same period? Do you think that's going to evolve at all, or do you think there'll be less of a market for it?
I think they've got to evolve, and I think as you alluded to it earlier with the fact that they have to embrace some sort of technology, and the value that your traditional advisor can add is having that contact with their clients. So using technology to streamline their processes and procedures, I think is something that they will have to do to make sure that they're able to keep going with their client bases in an efficient way, which clients are going to expect moving forward.
There'll always be a role for what we call in kind of traditional financial advice. I don't think that we're going to put any advisors out of business anytime soon. There are customers who have much more complex needs than what we can sort of meet with our restricted financial advice. That need won't go away anytime soon.